Kaido swings his weapon down, striking Luffy with great force. Luffy is sent flying to the ground, unconscious. CP0 agents watch the fight unfold. Momonosuke notices Luffy lying motionless on the ground and exclaims, "I do not hear Luffy's voice anymore." Kaido stands next to Luffy, observing him closely. Suddenly, something comes out of Luffy's mouth, catching Kaido's attention. Kaido turns to the CP0 agent and says, "So, you are prepared for what happens next?" Luffy lies on the ground, motionless, while the CP0 agent stands nearby. Kaido raises his weapon in the air and a massive blast erupts from the top of the roof. The fire engulfs the building, shocking everyone present. Suddenly, Kaido appears in the main hall where everyone is gathered. Kaido exclaims, "Where is your leader? I must have Momonosuke surrender. Straw Hat Luffy is dead. If anyone else wishes to challenge me, step forward." The Animal Kingdom pirates laugh and shout, "Yeah, he did it! Master Kaido is utterly victorious." The samurai pirates shout back, "That is a lie! The man in the straw hat is—" Law turns to Captain Kidd and says, "Straw Hat's voice has vanished." Captain Kidd remarks, "It was a short-lived dream." Law adds, "This is cold, brutal reality. There is nothing left to talk about." Chopper begins to cry and exclaims, "Luffy got beaten!" Nami sobs and declares, "There is no way Luffy lost! Of course he's not dead! That's ridiculous!" Kaido responds, "Well, at least one of you has some moxie." Pirates down below shout back, "You are a liar! I don't believe you!" Kaido breathes fire and throws a fire blast towards the pirates. Marco the Phoenix jumps in and stops Kaido's attack, furiously shouting, "Don't lose your composure! Not before it's all over!" Kaido shouts, "Onigashima will soon land upon the flower capital as originally planned. Unlike Orochi, I am no pushover." Kaido threatens everyone, declaring that they will become his slaves. He shouts, "You dared to fight back against me, and you have earned my wrath." People are terrified and cry out, "This is what it means to lose a war. The cost of your defeat is your freedom and your hope." Kaido is furious and raging. He shouts, "Bring Momonosuke to me. The battle is not over until I deal with him." One of Kaido's pirates exclaimed, "Hey, now's our chance! Take down Kid and Law! They're both on death's door!" Law and Kid were struggling hard as they just defeated Big Mom. The pirates attacked them by saying, "You might have beaten Big Mom, but Kaido is always the ultimate adversary." Heart Pirates and Kid Pirates jumped in and said, "Protect the captains!" Meanwhile, the samurai were escaping from the fire, and people were saying, "There's nothing except flames and fire. Search for an exit." Kid said to Law, "I am gonna fight Trafalgar. No surrender, no going out without a peep." Law replied, "Damn it, Straw Hat." In another scene, Momonosuke said to Yamato that he cannot fight Kaido as Luffy lost, so how can he win? But Yamato urged him to fight, even if it means death, and she said that Kaido is already beaten up. Momonosuke disagreed and said that only more people will die, Luffy already lost, and they can now only surrender. Yamato stated that she is not going to let Momonosuke do that because surrender is not an option. She added, "This is what the daimyo from all over Wano did when they risked their lives fighting back against Orochi. The last 20 years of Wano is riding upon this battle. If you're going to let it go to waste, then let's face death together." Momonosuke was stunned, and the samurais continued fighting while Yamato was damn serious. At the same time, Kaido was raging and continuously throwing fire blasts. The scene then shifts to the rooftop of Onigashima, where Luffy was unconscious, laid on the ground. Suddenly, from the riverside, Zunesha, the giant elephant, appears and says, "Momonosuke, I can hear it. How long has it been?" Momonosuke asked, "What is it, Zunesha?" Zunesha replied, "I hear the drums of liberation. For the first time in 800 years, he is here." Zunesha was seen with red eyes and said again, "Joy Boy has returned." Luffy was shown smiling while he was on the ground, and the chapter ends. Chapter 1040 begins. Zunesha was standing in water, and Luffy was saying, "What happened to me? Why can I still stand, even though I am having fun for some reason?" And Luffy laughs. As Zunesha says, "Luffy is Joy Boy?" Yamato says, "Is that what Zunesha is saying?" Suddenly, Sanji is shown looking at the sky, and he confusingly says, "Luffy?" On the performance floor, Kid and Law are also confused as they see someone in the sky. An old man looking at the sky says, "Is that you, Straw Hat fellow?" Marco also confusingly says, "Straw Hat? Hey, he is still breathing." Luffy and the little girl are happy for Luffy being alive. The scene shifts to Sacred Marioa, a castle of Gorosei. One of the Gorosei says, "So we have lost an elite agent, and made Kaido angry. What was the point?" The other Gorosei says, "What if I told you that there was a potential future that would make us beg for outcome? It is always better to eliminate dangerous variables." The bald guy furiously says, "In every era, the world government has attempted to recover the Egum Gum fruit, and not once has it ever succeeded. For 800 years. The man with a long beard says, "It is as though the devil fruit is trying to escape our grasp, and it very well might be." The other Gorosei says, "Zoan fruits contain a will of their own, and this particular fruit has the name of a god. The other name of Gum Gum fruit is the Zoan-type human fruit. That is a mythical type model, Nika, possessing a body with the properties of rubber, and fighting in whatever way he fancies, bringing smiles to the faces of the people. The warrior of liberation, also known as Nika, the sun god. Awakening brings his rubbery body greater physical strength and freedom. It is said that in all the world there is no power more ridiculous." The scene comes back to the second floor of Onigashima. The scene moves back to the top floor, where Luffy was in his moon pose and saying, "Oh, I can do everything I wanted to do. I think I can fight a bit longer. My heartbeat sounds so funny. This is the pinnacle of what I can do. This is Gear 5. The scene moves back to the lower floor where Kaido was enraged. Everyone was looking upward in the sky, so Kaido got confused and said, "What is it, men?" In confusion, he looked upward and said, "What is up there on the roof?" Suddenly, the ceiling of the roof started breaking more and more. The Animal Kingdom pirates were confused. Law and Kid were also shocked and confused. Chopper said, "Is that Luffy?" Suddenly, a giant hand came down from the ceiling, so giant that it grabbed the whole dragon Kaido. It was Luffy coated with white stuff. He pulled Kaido out from the lower floor to the top floor with his gigantic hands. Luffy wrapped Kaido with his long, heavy stretched arms. He swung Kaido here and there to the left and right very quickly, and then bumped Kaido to the ground with great pressure. Kaido was badly bumped into the ground. Luffy was laughing, and Kaido said, "Straw Hat, you survived. Thank you." Kaido fired a massive fire blast by saying, "Blast breath." Luffy was shocked to see such a massive fireball. Luffy jumped into the air by holding the ground, and the ground turned into rubber. He not only stopped the attack, but because the ground was now rubber, the attack got repelled towards Kaido. Kaido was shocked and got a massive hit by his own fireball. Then we saw the Gear 5 Sun God Nika form of Luffy, and Luffy was laughing maniacally. Kaido said, "I'm sorry about that earlier. I didn't want to win that way." Luffy replied, "Don't sweat it. Let's finish this up." Chapter 10. 45 begins. Kaido says, "I was certain that you were dead." Luffy laughs and says, "Me too." Kaido says, "Given that you're transferring your rubber power to other things, I suppose I can interpret this as the awakening of your Paramecia powers." But something doesn't add up. Kaido opens his mouth and shouts, "Body transformations like that are the trademark of Zoan powers." As he finishes speaking, he suddenly eats Luffy whole. But Luffy was standing in his mouth, holding Kaido's teeth with his hands. Kaido was confused and said, "Why you?" Kaido pressured Luffy, trying to digest him into his body, but Luffy started bouncing in Kaido's body, making it look like rubber. Kaido was struggling and Luffy shouts, "Balloon!" Suddenly Kaido's body becomes so fat, and Kaido shouts in pain. Kaido was struggling hard, and his body was now looking like a balloon. Yamato and Momonosuke were also shocked. Yamato says, "What is that? What's happening? I don't understand. Kaido is getting fatter. Was that always one of his forms?" Struggling, Kaido says, "Curses! What's wrong with me? My body isn't made of rubber." Inside Kaido's body, Luffy says, Oh, I see two lights! Suddenly, Luffy's hands come out of Kaido's eyes by stretching. Luffy grasps Kaido's nose and shouts, "Gumo Gumo no! Escape rocket!" and pushes himself out of Kaido's body. Kaido feels pain and shouts loudly. Luffy sees Kaido's back and smiles as he was enjoying the fight. Luffy blows air out from his body, which pushes Luffy back high into the sky. Kaido, Momonosuke, and Yamato are confused. Yamato says, "What?" Luffy flies in the air, transforms his body into a giant form, and was going to step on Kaido's face. Kaido shouts, "Giant!" Kaido dodges the attack and bites Luffy on the back. Luffy shouts in pain, but then grasps Kaido's body from his both hands and starts swinging with Kaido's body by saying loudly, "Jump rope!" Kaido, who was struggling, was shouting loudly in pain. As Luffy was wriggling Kaido's body, Kaido moves back to Luffy, and by breathing fire, he shouts, "Blast breath!" and straight fires a massive fire blast straight on Luffy's face. Yamato says, "Oh no! He took the full brunt of the blast breath!" Luffy's body was fully burnt, and he was falling from the sky after taking a massive hit. As Luffy was falling, he says, "That does it!" He struggles and starts running in the air with full speed, and he jumps back like a projectile to the top of the roof. Luffy was in high sky. Kaido sees Luffy and gets frustrated. As Luffy was going to use his attack, Kaido jumps in the air and says, "Conqueror of 3 worlds, Ragnarok!" and hits straight in Luffy's head with his full power. Luffy's rubber head breaks the ceiling and comes inside the building. The Beast Pirates are frightened and shocked to see the new, massive Luffy. Law, Kid, Chopper, Nami, and a little girl are all confused and shocked as they see Luffy coated with white substance. Luffy pulls himself back from the inner building to the rooftop where Kaido is standing. Kaido says, "It's like something from a comic strip." Luffy sits in front of Kaido, and Kaido says, "Well, that was a very entertaining show, but you have reached your limit, haven't you? You cannot defeat me." Luffy tells Kaido to shut up, and then he smiles and says, "Who says I am at my limit?" Luffy's body starts draining slowly, and he looks completely out of his limit. Luffy says, "I am all tuckered out." Kaido asks, "Who are you?" Kaido also feels weak and sits in front of Luffy, holding his weapon in his hand. Yamato says, "It really is Luffy. It just didn't look like him because his hair and clothes turned white, but his voice is nearly dying out." Luffy gets back up and says, "This can't end yet. Momo, Tama, Kinemon, Pedro." Kaido laughs and warns Luffy to be careful or he will die. Luffy responds, "You actually think I'm afraid of that?" Luffy talks to himself saying, "Come on, Heart, hit that beat again." Luffy starts laughing again and says, "Yeah, that's the sound." Suddenly, Kaido stands up and readies his attack by saying, "Very well then." Yamato shouts, "Look out, Luffy!" But before Luffy can move back, it is too late. Kaido hits Luffy with his full force, but instead of getting harmed, Luffy's body changes its shape to weapon shape. Yamato is shocked, and Luffy is running and dodging Kaido's attacks. Kaido once more raises his weapon high, aiming perfectly and attacks Luffy directly on his head. But again, after taking a direct hit, Luffy jumps towards the nearby cliff. Luffy says, 3, 2, 1, 0, and Luffy pushes himself back towards Kaido with full force. Kaido is confused as Luffy goes with wringing his Gatling hands around his body, creating a circle attack. Kaido says, "What does all of this mean? He turns all white. He uses the colors of armament and the Supreme King, and he can transfer his powers to other things? I have never seen such freewheeling combat before." Luffy shouts, "There is no one in this world who can defeat me." Luffy throws a direct punch towards Kaido, hitting him directly in the face. Yamato and Momonosuke are also shocked as they see Kaido getting a direct hit in the face. As Kaido gets hit, he falls back badly, and his body reaches the ground while blood comes out of his face. Luffy smiles and says, "Isn't this fun, Kaido?" The chapter ends. Chapter 10. 46 begins. Kaido was lying on the ground, and Luffy asks him, "What should I call my last move? Gum Gum, what?" Kaido then responds, "I just have one question," as he looks towards Luffy with blood on his face. "Who are you?" Suddenly, Zunisha appears and says, "How long has it been since I heard this rhythm? Joy Boy, oh Joy Boy, it's as though you are right there. My heart is dancing. I cannot help but feel that fate is at work. I cannot help but have hope in him." Luffy smiles and confidently declares, "Who am I? I am Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will surpass you and become the king of the pirates." Kaido responds, "I am relieved to hear you still have sass, Straw Hat. Awakening is what happens when your mind and body catch up to your powers, and those are certainly ridiculous powers. I have lost quite a lot, much of what I have built up over the years. My followers, my castle. Same for you, right?" Luffy shouts back, "But there's still something I gotta take back from you." Suddenly, Kaido attacks and starts throwing punches directly towards Luffy, using his Dragon Swarm technique. Luffy counters with his own Gatling attack and throws multiple punches back at Kaido. After stepping back a bit, Kaido warns Luffy, "The battle is burning everything below, from the performance floor to the castle. There are thousands of your men trapped down there too. They will all burn to death." However, Luffy remains calm and replies, "Nah, I left everyone else in charge down there. All I have to do is beat you." Kaido smiles and shouts his next attack, "Demolition Gust," as he throws multiple sword slashes towards Luffy, but Luffy stretches his body and dodges every attack. Meanwhile, other Straw Hat members and their allies are fighting Kaido's army on the lower floors. Robin and Brook are together. Sanji is helping the ladies escape the fire. The musician is struggling with a giant. Usopp is fighting and trying to turn off the fire. Frankie is carrying Zoro on his back and escaping, and Jinbei is using his water techniques to turn off the fire. Back on top, Yamato is beating Momonosuke and saying, "You have to make flame clouds to keep Onigashima aloft. It has always been the only solution." The scene then moves back to Kaido and Luffy, with Luffy in the high air, holding lightning in his hand. Kaido is standing in front of him and says, "Onigashima is going to fall." Both Luffy and Kaido are smiling, and the chapter ends. Chapter 10, 47, begins. On the rooftop, Luffy caught lightning, and Kaido laughed, saying, "So you grabbed the lightning?" Then Kaido shouted, "Preposterous!" and Luffy shouted, "Gumo Gumo no lightning!" as he threw lightning toward Kaido. Kaido dodged Luffy's attack, and the lightning struck the ground before Kaido. Kaido said, "Play all the games you want," and Luffy was struggling. Kaido threw a strong slash toward Luffy, but Luffy grabbed the lightning and dodged the attack. Luffy swung around lightning and shot himself as a projectile toward Kaido. Kaido continued saying, "Play all the games you want, but abilities alone cannot conquer the world." Luffy was about to launch his attack, but before he could, Kaido struck him with so much force directly on his head. Luffy was falling towards the ground. Kaido continued saying, "Abilities alone cannot conquer the world. The world is convenient that way. Roger didn't have any fruit powers." Kaido jumped in the air and threw another attack at Luffy. Luffy fell to the ground and bounced back. Kaido said, "Because only Haki can transcend all." Kaido then shouted, "Destroyer of Death, Thunder Bagua," and launched a powerful hit at Luffy. Luffy was sent flying, but suddenly he caught Kaido from his chest and tried to take him into the sky with him. Kaido hit Luffy's hand and said, "Let go of me! You are only telling me where to find you!" Kaido transformed into a dragon and shouted, "Dragon Twister Demolition Gust!" He said to Luffy, "You still have a weakness to cutting attacks, I presume," and launched multiple slash attacks towards Luffy. Luffy was hit badly by the slash attacks. He was struggling, and blood was coming out of his mouth. Then a scene was shown from the town below, where people were enjoying themselves, and no one knew what was happening on Onigashima. On the top, Kaido shouted, "Let go of me! Come down here, Straw Hat!" and then launched a powerful attack at Luffy. Luffy got a direct attack from Kaido's blast, and his whole body was burnt. Inside the castle, Luffy's alliance had already won. An old man said, "Tell me then, which would you prefer? If the Straw Hat fellow defeats Kaido, we will all fall to our deaths. It means Kaido's won." One person said, "Really? Is that supposed to be a debate?" Another said, "If we win this battle, I'll rest assured they can lead a good life. How wonderful that would be. We will have a country we can be proud of again." Everyone then shouted, "Go ahead, Straw Hat, crush Kaido, and don't worry about us." Kid was not liking all this praise. Back on top of Onigashima, Luffy said, "Hey, Momo!" Momonosuke saw upward towards Luffy, and Yamato and Momonosuke were shocked to see Luffy. In the sky, there was Luffy with a supermassive gigantic hand coated with haki, and Kaido was in front of Luffy. Luffy said, "Hey Momo, I'm gonna put an end to all of this, but Onigashima's in the way, so move it!" Yamato shouts, "He's going to punch right through the island!" Meanwhile, Momonosuke cries out, "Luffy, no!" But Luffy just smiles and says, "Do it, Momo! I believe in you!" Both dragons, Kaido and Momonosuke, are shocked, and the chapter ends. Before we continue, I want to say something. Only a few people are subscribed to my channel. Isn't that unfair? I'm the only member of my team creating videos, so please subscribe. It motivates me to keep doing this work. Chapter 1048 begins. Chapter begins with Luffy saying, "Move Onigashima out of the way." Momo replies, "Wait Luffy, I can't." Then Momonosuke remembers his father and says, "I can," and starts pushing Onigashima. Luffy and Kaido both look at each other, with Luffy's hand bursting out with haki. Kaido says, "Very well then, I will take your punch. Tell me, Straw Hat, do you know what happened 20 years ago? The hero of this country was burned to death?" Luffy looks confused, and Kaido continues, "Ever since, this has been a lawless place, and now you are the hero they have been waiting for 20 years. That's right, let go of me. I am not going anywhere, and that giant fist of yours will not come down on me. It will melt into nothing first." Luffy shouts, "I am not melting!" He names his attack, and Kaido names his attack. Luffy says, "The old man taught me how to do that without touching. It will smash you all the way down to the bottom of hell." Luffy pushes his gigantic hand towards Kaido and shouts, "Gumo Gumo, no Gunbadrang!" Kaido also uses his attack and shouts, "Rising Dragon, Flame Bagua!" Then a past scene of Onigashima is shown, and the chapter ends. Chapter 1049 begins. From the top of Onigashima, a great amount of haki was bursting out in all directions. Flame Dragon Kaido was trying to bite and stop Luffy's giant hand fist. Luffy was also burning from Kaido's flames. Kaido says, "You fought hard to reach this point, but you cannot change the world." Then Kaido's past is shown. Kid Kaido became the ultimate warrior when he was only 10 years old. A scene from 46 years ago is shown, where Kaido was in his youth and says, "Why does everyone bother to obey these celestial dragons anyway?" A man on the throat says, "Knock it off, Kaido. I am enlisting you. You will join the Navy." Kaido replies, "Why should I be a government lapdog?" The man says, "Because our country doesn't know what to do with you. In exchange for custody of Kaido, this country will receive the right to attend the next reverie." Kaido shouts, "Don't use me as some political pawn." Someone shouts, "Kaido's escaped." A 700 million bounty poster of Kaido is seen. Soldiers shout, "We captured Kaido. He escaped again. He gets caught when he is hungry. This is a prison ship, not a cafeteria." After 1 year, Kaido is seen beating people. Whitebeard says, "He is so strong. Who is this guy? He is only 15? Hey, you little snot. You want to be a pirate? Rocks wanted to meet you. What do you say?" And then Kaido joins the Rocks pirates, and they become even stronger. Someone enters the room and says, "Big trouble, Kaido. Come with me now. We are going to God Valley." Pirates were shouting, "The Rocks pirates are no more? What kind of joke is this, with all the monsters they have got? Apparently it was a sailor named Garp who did it." A girl says, "Nah, they just couldn't stand each other. No teamwork in that group. Where are you going, Kaido? You big rat!" After 10 years, Kaido was now the captain of the Animal Kingdom pirates and was leading his own crew. Kaido shouts, "We are going to take all of these pampered, noble-born rulers and drag them off their ivory thrones down to the battlefield with us. That's what I call equality and freedom, a world where only war decides a man's true worth." Then Kaido says to King, "I wonder where that kid heard it. Yamato dropped Joy Boy's name. If he is the same as the man you are waiting for, King, then I think I know who Joy Boy is." King says, "Who is he?" Kaido replies, "Apparently, Odin's desire to open the country is meant to welcome Joy Boy." Scene moves back to the present at the top of Onigashima. A CP0 agent was running from the top of Onigashima. Momonosuke was shouting, "Luffy will win! I know he will!" Yamato was motivating Momonosuke. Kaido was clashing with Luffy furiously. Kaido says to Luffy, "And what kind of world can you create, Straw Hat?" Luffy replied, I will make a world where my friends can eat as much as they want." As he spoke, he intensified his attack and threw a powerful and monstrous gigantic fist into Kaido's face, causing him to fall unconscious and plummet towards the ground at great speed. As Kaido was descending, he reflected on his past conversation with King. Kaido said, "King, I think I know who Joy Boy is." King asked, "Who is he?" Kaido replied, "He is the man who will eventually defeat me." King smiled and responded, "In that case, I suppose we will never see him." Momonosuke was exhausted and Luffy was also hurtling towards the ground. And the chapter ends. Chapter 1050 begins, with Kaido falling from the sky and hitting the ground with full force, causing him to revert back to his base form. He then plunged straight into the lava below ground, the same lava where Big Mom had fallen during her fight with Kid and Law. Meanwhile, Luffy was falling from the rooftop while Yamato was running towards him. Kaido was burnt in the lava, and Luffy was exhausted from the long battle. Yamato was happy as she saw Momonosuke and Luffy. She shouted, "This is incredible, you two! You are incredible!" Meanwhile, in the capital, the festival was coming to a conclusion. Back on top, Momonosuke said, "I will not open the borders yet." To which Zunisha, the giant elephant, replied, "Very well, I will respect your decision. I trust in your judgment." Momonosuke said, "Good, thank you." He felt something and said, "Is this an earthquake?" Animal pirates shouted, "It's too early to celebrate, fools. We still have you outnumbered. Lose focus, and you lose the fight. Now surrender." One of the alliance members of Luffy was watching Luffy and Kaido's fight coming to an end. He self-talked, "Haven't seen that in years. The skyboats from the festival. Oh, right." Then he shouted to everyone below the roof and said, "Listen up, I can confirm it. Luffy smashed Kaido all the way deep into the earth. Onigashima would have fallen, but Lord Momonosuke turned into a dragon and stopped it." Pirates shouted, "Then that pink dragon was Lord Momonosuke. He has powers." Other pirates also shouted in joy, "We are victorious! Yeah, we have taken down the two emperors of the sea. I never thought I would leave this battle alive." Master Nekomamushi said, "After 20 long years of waiting for the chance to avenge Lord Odin's death." Everyone was so happy. Law and Killer were smiling. Beppo was bursting out with joy and was hugging Law. Marco was feeling proud. Nami and Tama were looking so happy. All pirates were shouting with joy. Usopp was running and saying, "I got 2 patients in critical condition, Chopper." Frankie was also carrying Zoro and shouting, "Chopper, Zoro's out cold and won't come to." Other pirates were also shouting, "Dr. Chopper, we need help over here." Chopper said, "I am drowning in patience." Back on top of Onigashima, Momonosuke said, "Zunisha, can you hear me? I have thought long and hard." Meanwhile, animal pirates were saying, "There is no way Kaido lost. We are an emperor's crew." Frankie was frustrated and said, "You want to go a few more rounds? I am game." Brook tried to stop Frankie, but Yamato came and handled the situation by saying to beat the Animal Kingdom pirates. An earthquake was coming on Onigashima, and pirates were confused about this. Meanwhile, Kaido and Big Mom were burning underground in the magma pool. The pirates on the ground below Onigashima were confused by the earthquake. Suddenly, due to the imminent fight and destruction, the volcano erupted on Onigashima, and a great burst of magma came out. The pirates were shocked to see an underwater volcanic eruption. When people from the village below saw this, they said, "That was towards us. Is that Onigashima? Are Kaido's goons doing something?" Suddenly, Momonosuke came down and said, "All is well. You are not in danger." People mistook Momonosuke for Kaido and shouted in fear. Momonosuke came near the village in his dragon form and shouted, "I am not Kaido!" That eruption was the final drumbeat signaling the end of Kaido, the supreme commander of the Animal Kingdom pirates. People couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they were confused and shocked to see a pink dragon. Suddenly they saw some people coming behind the fog, and they were even more confused. Suddenly, a lady named Komurasaki appeared. People said, "No way! Is that a ghost? We just held the funeral for her. Is this a dream? A vision?" Suddenly they saw Kiyoshiro, and in even more confusion and shock they said, "Boss Kiyoshiro, wait, What happened to his styling hair? Kiyoshiro replied, It will be a long, long story. We have brought the new shogun of Wano. And the chapter ends. With the end of this chapter, we come to a conclusion. In the next chapter, we will see the Straw Hat Pirate's biggest party and the revelation of Momonosuke, who is now a grown-up man and 28 years old. Subscribe to my channel to stay tuned for the next video, which will continue with chapter 1051. Your subscription motivates me to keep working hard. Take care and bye.